The GDP for the second quarter, and this is the first reading which will get revised. Edward Lawrence has the number.
Yeah, this is a negative number for the second quarter. First reading, 0.9%. It's decreased 0.9%. So then again, the first quarter estimate, final estimate, was 1.6% decrease. Now we have a first estimate of the second quarter decrease of 0.9%. So if you look at the common definition of a recession, that is a recession for the first half of this year going back. Now, the Federal Reserve Chairman even said yesterday you have to take this with a grain of salt. He said it's going to be revised, but you can still look at the trend that is there. Atlanta Fed GDP Now said the estimate would be a little worse than this. It came in a little bit better, but again, still a negative number going forward.
U.S. economic activity contracted for the second consecutive quarter in Q2. Data from the Commerce Department showed Thursday that the Bureau of Economic Analysis advanced estimate of Q2 U.S. gross domestic products, GDP, showed a negative 0.9 annualized decrease in economic growth for the third month period ended June 30th of 2022. This part was highlighted to be exact on Yahoo Finance. Let's continue. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg expected data to show the U.S. economy grew at an annualized pace of 0.4 last quarter. The decline in GDP comes after the U.S. economic activity unexpectedly fell 1.6%. During the first quarter, the first negative reading since the second quarter of 2020. Two straight negative GDP prints meet the unofficial definition of a recession. And this is what they say, right? They say that that's not the definition, but you can go find it for yourself. You can always do your own research. The National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, however, says a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that is spread across the economy and that lasts more than a few months. The government's preliminary reading on second quarter GDP, the broadcast measure of economic activity, comes one day after the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell told reporters at a press conference that he did not believe that the economy was in a recession, even as other economic indicators show signs of softening. Enough with this article. Let's see some action on the channels. Editor, roll clip, fair use.
Do you eventually expect the NBER to declare what we're in, a recession?
Well, we're certainly in a transition, and we are seeing slowing as we all would have expected. But I think if you look at the full data and the type of data that NBER looks at, virtually nothing signals that this period in the second quarter is recessionary. Obviously, in the labor market, 3.6% unemployment, but also 1.2 million jobs in the second quarter, 2.7 million jobs over the first half of this year. That's not what typical people or what the NBER would typically think of as recessionary. So as we look at where we are right now, the consumer continues to power forward with resilience, although at somewhat moderating levels, as you would expect. We are continuing to see businesses invest, and we're hopeful here that the legislation that we're contemplating, hopefully we can move forward with a strong CHIPS Act vote today, would actually provide some serious longer-term incentive for businesses to accelerate investment in the kind of areas where we absolutely need in this economy.
I gotta tell you, I struggle with this. I get that why they want to do it from a political perspective, but you can't fake this.
No, I was laughing to myself with the "in my view" thing that Caitlin highlighted, because it's like, well, in my view, I should be drafted into the NBA. Like the NBA executives didn't agree with that.
Millions of dollars,
right? Like it doesn't really matter what you think. There is a technical definition: 2 straight quarters of negative economic growth. They clearly believe that is likely to come to pass later.
That is bullshit.
This week, they're trying to pre-bud it. To your point, we get why they're doing it politically.
Right.
At the same time, we have these terms for reasons. You don't have to like it. 25 or 30% in our most recent poll. Like, yeah, it's a problem for them. This adds to the problem. But you don't get to change the nomenclature in the middle of a campaign because it doesn't work.
Oh, my God!
Putting together.
Again, it's unfortunate. One of the clips, someone said that the second quarter data doesn't suggest we're in a recession. It actually suggests we're in a depression. Dagan, new home sales came out 2 days ago. Average home prices are down over $100,000 in just 2 months from April to June. Almost every economic data point that came out, it didn't miss. Most of these things didn't just simply miss Wall Street consensus. They missed by a country mile. I would be very, very afraid about, worrying too much about this recession talk because a lot of folks are going to soon be talking about depression talk. Let's figure out how to fix it. And by the way, stoking this thing with more money is how we got here in the first place. They need to stop forgetting about these so-called political wins ahead of the midterm elections and have a win for all of Americans once and for all.
Yeah. Things are going so great, though. Then why is it the White House officials are trying to redefine recession?
No, we're not redefining recession.
If we all understand a recession to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth in a row, and then you have White House officials come up here to say, no, that's not what a recession is. It's something else. How is that not redefining recession?
Because that's not the definition. That is not the definition.
Brian Deese said in 2008, of course, economists have a technical definition, which is of a recession, which is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth.
I can tell you this.
Yesterday he said 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of a recession.
It is
What
not.
changed?
It is not.
Why did he say that
it
was?
is not? I can speak to what he said yesterday in front of all of you, which is the last thing that you just repeated. There are many factors. There are many factors, economic factors and indicators to consider, and
that's okay.
I will say that the textbook definition of recession is not 2 negative quarters of GDP. We have a strong labor market. We have business.
The economy is on all Americans' minds. Families are paying more at the grocery store, feeling the pain at the pump. And a new report out this morning shows that the economy shrank for a second straight quarter. And some say we are officially in a recession. Yet President Biden has said we are on the right path. A lot of Americans don't feel that way. So is there a disconnect here, and is it going to get worse?
Let me speak to the numbers that you just mentioned, that GDP number that you just mentioned. So if you look at prior recession, what happens before a recession, what we're seeing is that we are in a transition.
That doesn't sound like a recession to me. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, what do you think about a recession?
Well, a recession is 2 quarters in a row of negative growth.
Here are the key dates to look out for in the future. So tomorrow, on July 28th, the GDP report that's going to be released. If the report shows a negative GDP, that's going to be 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. That would be your classic definition of a recession. On August 5th, the jobs report for the month of July will be released. It's most likely that we're going to see a net gain. So we're going to see jobs added to the economy, but at a slower rate. August 10th, that's when the July inflation report is going to be released. Initial forecasts predict that the rate of inflation will slightly cool down. But that could be temporary, or inflation, it may be stubborn, and it may not fall as fast as we'd like for the rest of the year. For July, so for the July CPI inflation report, just keep in mind, even if the inflation rate cools down to the 8% range, that's still a highly unacceptable rate. September 16th, that's going to be when the Federal Reserve has their next meeting. If they're going to raise interest rates again, that's when they're going to do it.
Hey guys, it's Jose, your regular Joe Blow again, keeping an eye out and my ears open, as always, to this current situation, and it's getting worse. The economy and its long time coming recession is official. GDP, and they now have a new definition. This is scary. We must stay alert and prepared to move forward, guys. This administration does not care about us. We need to learn by waking up and doing our research to learn and come to our own conclusion. Thank you guys for sticking with me to the end. Thank you dearly, and always, guys, stay free.